And I think that that's just such a powerful notion that we can do nothing and heal. You know, we were talking about Yoga Nidra and the practice and how powerful that feels like to me to just rest in what you are. And you brought up cold plunges, and then I talked about, you know, master plant teachers, and we can think about all of these different transformational experiences, you know, and I don't put those quotation marks because I'm doubting the transformational quality of those experiences at all. I'm doing it more so because everyone's talking about transformation these days, right? And there's so many paths to choose from. And one of my, you know, favorite reminders is that all rivers lead to the ocean. And so whatever path you choose, it will lead you where you want to go. There's so many different ways to awaken and connect. There's no one right way. And yet, what I notice for women who are in the modern world, who are juggling, some of us are juggling mothering, working, providing, caretaking, and somehow in that have to figure out how to shower, how to eat regular meals, how to eat enough, which for me is always a huge problem. I'm rarely ever eating enough as a breastfeeding mom, and all these different roles, you know, how to be loved, desired, attractive, stay young, so many expectations on modern women. Our plates are so full. And so to do this practice where we just experience, maybe for the first time, what it's like to be really, really held by something we can lean into, by an object that we don't have to check, like, are you getting tired, yoga prop? Are you getting tired, blanket, right? We're just surrendering into the gravitational holding of the earth. And how powerful that is to not have to better, change, or fix ourselves to heal, to just rest in the bliss, in the wholeness of what we are and what is there always. And as you said at the beginning, the practice of yoga, as we have learned it from our teachers and experienced it, it's not about making ourselves better or making ourselves new. It's about coming back to who we are. And I think that that's just such a powerful notion that we can do nothing and heal. And I want to pass the word to you, Jyanti, to see if there's anything you want to touch on with that, because I'm just so inspired. I could speak poetry about it all day.
Yeah, no, it's a really important point, because for a lot of people this concept is completely new. And like you've been saying, all of these transformational practices that are quite popular now, and there's nothing wrong with them, like you said, all paths lead to the sea. But sometimes it's just another version of the doing, of the patriarchy, of being efficient. I'm going to be really efficient at my self-development, and I'm going to be really, you know, dramatic and dynamic with this healing, as opposed to it's still doing. Whereas sometimes just being heals on all of the levels that the doing heals on, and then it gets even deeper, right down to a cellular level, often a pre-us level or a pre-human body that we exist in now, depending on your belief system. You're healing by being instead of healing by doing. And I'm also quite pitta, I'm quite active, I do a lot, but there's also that kapha side of me that is, I used to call it lazy. Now I see it as efficient. And if I can heal by lying down and almost pretending to be asleep, then sign me up. That's the one I'm going to go for.
So lucky to have that kapha side. I was joking with my friend who's in Ayurveda school with me. Like, I used to want a lot of different things, and now I just want to be born in my next life as a kapha. But like, I really feel that, Jyanti, and it hits so home. Like, I feel almost like I'm being called out a little bit, because this pattern for me is coming up so hard in my life. I am in full-time Ayurveda school right now, and I was just in clinical internships in San Francisco with my teachers. And part of that process is we have to volunteer for consultations. So here I am in this huge classroom full of all of my colleagues, other students, and I'm the one getting the consult, I'm like the person who's talking about my health history and all this different stuff. And for those of you who don't know my story, in these last few years, I had a really hard birth, lost a lot of blood, and have been building up my vitality since then, and had a really hard postpartum depression, just was left really depleted. And so I have tried with every fiber of my being to achieve my way to health. And it's such a difficult place when you also have a lot of health knowledge, because you know all the things you should do. I got my food soaking, I got my nutrition, all this stuff. And the Vaidya, the Ayurvedic physician, just looked at me and he was like, you need to do nothing. He was like, you need to have fun. I was like, fun? Like if you could all see the like wall behind this camera right now is just full of books on yoga, on the womb, on nutrition, on herbs. Like I know I need to have fun. I know I need to rest, but I have no idea how, because that was not modeled for me. And so what I've learned in these last almost 3 years now is that rest is a skill, and you wouldn't judge yourself if you got on a bike right away and had no idea how to drive it and just fell off. You'd be like, oh, I need to learn. I need someone to teach me how to ride that bike. Like, I just need to practice more. In the same way, rest is a skill that most of us have not been taught by our parents. Maybe you learned how to ride a bike. Maybe your mom taught you how to do that, but I bet your mom didn't teach you how to rest, because in order for you to learn how to rest, she had to model that. And there's no shame there, right? My mom couldn't really rest. My grandmother had 7 kids. She didn't have the opportunity, right? So many of us didn't learn how to rest because it wasn't possible for our mothers or our grandmothers or great grandmothers. But now, is it possible for you? And my question is always, how long can you keep running on empty? And this is the question I'm asking myself. How long can you keep running on empty before it really catches up with you? And so what I love about what you're going to share tomorrow, Jyanti, is it's like Yoga Nidra, and literally just lying there and learning how to support yourself, to be still and to be with yourself. That is a skill. That is like riding a bike. And the more we practice it, the more normal it becomes. And I've noticed, it's so much easier to begin practicing rest when you're guided and when you're supported in that space.
Yeah. And really importantly, if you're already a caregiver, which I often used to not think of myself as a caregiver because I don't have children. And then I realized I care for people every single day. I hold space for people. Everyone is a caregiver in some capacity, whether you have employees, family, children, animals, whether you just care about the environment, your community, all of these things are you giving. And a phrase I heard recently, and I don't know who's quoted as saying it, so apologies, but it went roughly along the lines of, make sure you rest so you can give the world the best of you instead of what's left of you. And I just thought that was really, really beautiful way to look at it, because often when you are a nurturer and in a caregiving role, the person or thing that you're caring for will always come first. And so it's harder for us to take this time to rest. But if you can flip the mentality from I must provide and then I'll provide for myself, to give the people you're caring for, the world, the best of you instead of just what's left of you, I think that's a really beautiful way to. We need more well-rested humans, but particularly women.
Yeah. Just naming, why women need more rest. But I also just want to name, if we look at physiology, if we look at the body and how it works, we see that the adrenal glands of women and female-bodied people are so much more active in our hormone production and supporting our endocrine function in our monthly cycle, that we need more rest. And actually, because testes do so much of the work, so much of the legwork in hormone production, whereas, in my body, my adrenals do a lot of the work to help my sex hormones to be created every month. And so Whereas most people think, 6 to 7 hours or even 5 to 7 hours, I'm good. That's actually research that is based on male physiology. And so there's a great book called Women Are Not Small Men. And just to say that sentence, women are not small men. So we need different sleep. We're not carbon copies of men. And so we have different sleep needs because of the difference in our hormone production. We have a monthly cycle, not just a 24-hour cycle. That is our infradian rhythm or our menstrual cycle. And in Chinese medicine, the same thing is said, where these sex hormones like estrogen are deeply connected to our yin, to our building, nourishing, moistening energy in our body. And how do we build yin? By resting and doing nothing. And in a yang world where we go out and achieve our health, oh my God, it's so hard to build yin. And one of the most beautiful practice to do that is Yoga Nidra that you'll be sharing tomorrow. Best advice you ever received that you would recommend for someone starting to care for themselves? It's a great question, Jyanti. Do you want to answer that? And I'm just going to tend to the chat for a moment.
Sure. Quickly and succinctly, I would say rest is investing in your future self. And on the flip side, it's also soothing your past self who perhaps neglected yourself in the past. And in a world where we understand what investment means, or the hustle and the, working hard for your goals, then use that if that suits your understanding in a rest capacity, that you're resting now so that you don't have to burn out later. Or I notice myself, if I rest for 20 minutes, suddenly this 10 item to-do list that felt like it was totally unachievable is suddenly makes sense and everything flows a little bit better. So see if you can see it as an investment in your future self and your current self.
And, just noticing how, as you said, like in the world that we live in, which was created based on male physiology and offers a very easy path to quote unquote success for male physiology, we are stuck in this loop of I'm gonna get my ish done and then I'm gonna rest. And that works for male physiology. But for women, what I've noticed is so many of us need to rest first and rebuild our stores of that nourishing, grounding, building energy, and then we can create. And I notice this for myself. When I come from that place of rest, I get an 8-hour project done in 4 hours, in 3 hours, because I'm clear, I'm calm, I'm connected. I'm moving from that place within that is nourished and grounded.
I'm going to bring this back to food, and maybe I'm the only person who gets like this, but do you ever just feel so excited to cook when your kitchen cupboards are full, you've done a shop, your fridge is bursting with freshness? It's the same idea. When you're replenished and full, the things you have to do seem so much more appealing. And I just wanted to go back slightly to something you said a minute ago, and you referenced sleep, and a few people I'd see in the chat have talked about getting sleep. The beauty of Yoga Nidra is that sleep is unconscious rest and Yoga Nidra is conscious rest, and you're getting into the subconscious very much. And so both are needed, but most people at least get their unconscious rest for a few hours in sleep, whereas Yoga Nidra can give you that conscious, aware, not alert, but aware rest. And it's also getting into that subconscious layer, which is very much where we dream, where we process, and where we transform. And there's a lot more studies in science being done in this area. Unfortunately, they're calling it non-sleep deep rest, which sometimes they reference back to Yoga Nidra and where this came from. But look, however they call it, the research is coming out. And if that helps the people who maybe are a bit more skeptical do these practices, then hey ho, I'm all in.
Hey ho, your chemistry science background is like, I'm into
Yeah.
No, I'm so glad you mentioned that, Jyanti, because that is the difference between the deep sleep and, or let's say that's the difference between the Yoga Nidra, and lots of books talk about 1 hour of Yoga Nidra being equal to 4 hours of sleep, because often when we're sleeping, our brain is still going, we're still processing, we're dreaming. you know? And so what that does is it actually keeps us out of a deeply restorative state of rest. And so you can think about those nights where you've got a lot going on and in your head, and you do sleep, and you sleep for a while, but you wake up and you don't feel rested. And Yoga Nidra is that opportunity to totally let go and yet be aware and rest in that state of awareness. And so for those of you who want to join Jyanti's class tomorrow, comment waitlist. So anything else you want to say, Jyanti? I'm just so grateful always to be here with you and to share with you.
Yeah, I suppose we've talked a lot, and we love talking, you and I. This practice is beyond words, and that's not because I don't know enough about it to describe it to you, but it really is something that has to be experienced, and something I've been really looking at lately, because as you mentioned, my background is in sciences and chemistry. And for those, who maybe aren't aware, chemistry is looking at how atoms move and orientate in space. So everything around us is atoms. It's the building block of everything. And so my science mind, as well as my deeply spiritual self, love when there's overlap. But a lot of the time, these things are just beyond words, like I said. And science is an evidence-based practice. So we take something, we test it, we see if it's able to be replicated and or falsified, and then it's like, this is true. Whereas a lot of these practices that you offer and I offer are practice-based evidence. And so it's practicing and being like, whoa, this is so super powerful. Put us in a lab, it may not be able to be replicated because we are all individuals, and this is beyond science. And as a scientist, I can say that this is beyond science. And sometimes part of me wishes it'll never be proved, because this is the magic that I don't really want to know how it works. I just feel it. That's enough. That's enough for me. That evidence that of the practice is enough for me. So if you're curious, please join us. You get to decide that if you want to incorporate this into your life or not. And we will touch on that in tomorrow's workshop of how you can bring this into your life. Because again, it's great to offer people stuff, and then I hate when people are left hanging. Okay, what do I do now? So we'll talk a little bit about that as well.
I love that. And I would also add the layer of it's just another kind of science, because yoga and Ayurveda are sciences, but they're not lab-based sciences. They're sciences that are based on observation. And that is so beyond what the intellectual mind can understand, especially a Western intellectual mind. And so that, like, when you talk about chemistry, I just think about Ayurveda and the microcosm and the macrocosm. It's all so similar, just different languages to explain reality. And yet what you said is, rings so true of that. The best way to understand in this sense is to experience it. It's like, how do you explain to someone the taste of an apple? You're going to sit there for hours and try to explain the crispiness, the sweetness, the kind of sourness. Or you could just take a bite of the damn apple and experience that for yourself. And that's what we're doing here. It's like, come tomorrow, come experience it. Just like me and my restorative training. Like, I read for years about restorative yoga, but it wasn't until my restorative training where I was having the best poops of my life, wanted to message all the friends that I had and be like, I love you so much. I'm so grateful you're in my life. Like, smiling at everyone. I just have this image of me in these huge Birkenstocks, which huge fluffy socks, like the Birkenstock sandals. And I was just walking around San Francisco in the most ridiculous, comfortable clothes, so relaxed from that training. So Jyanti, you teach just the most nourishing experiences. And I'm going to try to be there tomorrow. I don't usually always have the space to come, but I'm going to come tomorrow because I need this Yoga Nidra. So thank you so much for coming on and for sharing. I'm so excited for the class tomorrow. And for those of you who want to join, you can comment waitlist or direct message us, and we'll give you the link to the waitlist for Jyanti's class. That's it. That's a wrap.
That's it. It'll be my pleasure to hold space for you all tomorrow, including you, dear Usha Anandi, who holds space for all of us. So
excited.